All right, Rebbe will say, good morning, let us begin. So I figure Erev Shabbos is a good time to Meretz Hashem restart our learning of Tzidkas Hatzaddik. I'm jumping out of order just a little bit, only because last night also in our Chassidus Chabura we did a beautiful piece by the Rebbe. So today also we'll begin something. We're not going to finish it today, but we're going to begin in Os Kuf Lamed Dalid. I sent it out on the chat last night. Kuf Lamed Dalid. So we'll say, in these couple of pieces, the Rebbe speaks about tshuva. And there's actually a couple of very profound ideas that the Rebbe espouses. So let's take a look. Kuf Lamed Dalid in the Be'uri HaChasidus. Let's start in the middle section here. So the Rebbe writes as follows. Yesh pamim shenidme la'adam shekvar shav kerai b'tshuva shlema b'charata gimura b'nimchulu lo chata'av. So Hatzaddik writes as follows. There are times when it looks like that to a person, he has done complete tshuva. Right? There are times, what's the thing with this? Just in our own lives. I've done something wrong, and I have gone through the steps of tshuva. I've gone through the steps, I've done the work. Shav kerai b'tshuva shlema, I've done complete tshuva, charata gimura, complete remorse, v'nimchulu lo chata'av. And as far as I'm concerned, I feel that I've done what needs to be done in order to have my sin fully forgiven. Okay, so we'll say, so remember, how does a person feel in the aftermath of that process? Good. I made the mistake, but I also did what needed to get done in order to rectify that particular mistake. Then something interesting happens. V'achar zman hu chozer umisorer belibo lehismarmer al chata'av. But then something happens. Sometime later, the pain of the sin is awoken inside of my heart again. Umargish belibo ki'ilo lo nimchulu lo legamre. It's an interesting thing. Now sometimes I do something, right? I do the work in order to do tshuva. I kind of file it away, and then it comes back. I haven't done it again. I have not repeated the act again. I'm still omed b'tshuvasi. I'm still holding strong in my tshuva, but in my mind, I begin thinking about it again. And I'm going to both say, the Hatzaddik over here is not saying in my mind I'm thinking about it because I want to do it again, or I'm thinking about it again because I'm about to relapse, but I just begin to think about and remember that chait. And it's so strange because in my mind, not in my mind, I know I did the crime, right? I committed the crime, I did the tshuva, and I made my peace, and I moved forward. And why is it back? Umargish ba'asmo shnei machshavas halalu al af heyosam sosum zelozeh einan dinyon bilvad. And I will say, in my mind, I say to myself, why am I having these contradictory emotions or thoughts? On one hand, the idea of tshuva, which allows me to file it away and move forward. But then at the same time, I'm thinking about this particular avera. I'm contemplating it, and I'm wondering, what's happening here? Why is it back? If I'm still holding strong in my tshuva, why is it back? And the Rebbe writes something amazing. He says, Ube'emes, Shneihem emes. The Rebbe said the truth is both of these thoughts are correct. In other words, the idea that I have filed the chait away and need to move on, but the idea that it's also coming up in my mind, they're like bubbling up in my mind every once in a while, those are not contradictory. Why, says Hatzaddik, and I will say this is so profound. V'tam hadavar hu mishum dekaim olam shanu noktim lahalacha. So we'll say quoted the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, shesover, she'averos, she'izvada aleihen b'yom kippurim zeh, chozer u'misvada aleihen b'yom kippurim haba. Well, so there's just a little bit of background. There's a fundamental machlokes. How should a person relate to sin after he's done tshuva? Right? I committed an avera. Now I did tshuva for it. How should I relate to that particular avera? And there's a machlokes in the Gemara. One opinion says, once you go ahead and you do tshuva, file it away, don't talk about it anymore. Let me be more specific. The actual machlokes of the Gemara is, let's say in Tafshin Pei Beis, right, this year, let's say I did a particular Avera, I did Avera A, and I did tshuva for that Avera. I went through the entire process of the Avera, come to Rosh Hashanah, I do tshuva for it again, Yom Kippur, good. I close it out. In Tafshin Pei Gimel, right, let's fast forward a little bit. So in Tafshin Pei Gimel, which is this coming Rosh Hashanah, do I have to do tshuva for that Avera again? In other words, do I have to do tshuva for Averos that I've done tshuva for already and have not repeated? It's a good kasha, right? Because you're supposed to say, like the shaila is, hopefully a person comes into it, the goal is to come to Rosh Hashanah, right? The goal is to come into every day, but let's say Chodesh Elul Rosh Hashanah with a list of things that I've done wrong, right? And what I need to work on. So I will say, here's the shaila. Is that a running lifetime list? Or do we say, no, the stuff that I did wrong, but fixed, did tshuva for, I could close the door on those things, and they do not have to be part of my list. Or no, is it a running list? We'll say, I can't tell you. We'll say, it's the chilik, by the way, it's the chilik between coming into Rosh Hashanah with like a little piece of paper in your machzor, versus like a 3-ring binder, is this a running list of life averas, or is this just the stuff that's kind of open? It's open right now. In other words, the file's open because I haven't done what I need to get done. I will say fundamental machlokes. So how do we paskin? So the Gemara says, some say, well, Tzaddik says, the Rambam says also, we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says averas that you did tshuva for last Yom Kippur, you should continue to do tshuva for on this Yom Kippur, even if you're omed b'tshuvaso, even if you have not repeated the sin. Which I will say is a very overwhelming idea. Again, how this actually plays out in one's tshuva, we're not going to get into right now. Hatzaddik is just focusing on this in one very specific way, which you're going to see. But there is this notion, I will say, which even though I've closed out the file, I've done the tshuva, I've done what I need to do, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, continue to do tshuva for these averos year after year, day after day. Chozr misfat leim yom kippur maba. Mishum shene'emar, quotes over the pasuk from Tehillim, ki pesha'ai ani eda, I know my sins, v'chatasi negdi samid. My sin is always opposite me. And I both say that's the operative phrase. My sin is always opposite me. V'chatasi negdi samid. So Rabbi Yaakov says, part of the process of tshuva is I bring my averos with me. I never file them away. I am constantly and consistently, consciously aware of the mistakes that I made. Now again, I will say, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is not saying that tshuva doesn't work, and he's not saying that tshuva doesn't allow you, so to speak, to close out the file. But there's a power in being able to be constantly aware of your averos, right? There's a power in that. Because I always say, if I'm constantly aware of my mistakes, what does that create? What does that awareness create? Well, the awareness creates an awareness. The awareness creates a vigilance, right? If I know my weaknesses and I'm constantly aware of them, then hopefully that diminishes the possibility and probability that I'm going to repeat those very mistakes. So an incredible yesod. So we'll say, why is this important for Hatzaddik? So listen to this. He says, and I will say, again, he models it after David HaMelech. V'chatasi negdi samid. My averos are always opposite me. Now he goes on, we'll end with this. He says, Va'afilu ba'averos kigom bitl mitzvahs aseh, shalochihi, d'miyad kisha'adam shavalayim b'tshuva, lo zaz misham ad shemochelen lo, mikomokom yoshuv yisvad alem. I will say, now this is interesting. Again, more specificity than we're going to get into today. But the idea the Gemara says over here is even averos that halacha l'maisa, there's a certain category, for example, mitzvos aseh, positive commandments. So the Gemara says that if a person negated the performance of a positive commandment, that's obviously a much lower level of an infraction, right? Being mevatel and aseh. And if you do tshuva for that, you're forgiven immediately, instantaneously. even those type of averos, a person should carry with them and be ever aware of them. So Rabbi Tzaddik says, we'll say, now we understand the internal cognitive contradiction. Watch this. V'hari nimtza, I'm in page Shin Lamed Bey's left-hand column. We're going to end with this. V'hari nimtza, shegam zeh emes, ma shenidma lo shelo nimcholu avonosov. V'af shebevadai ha'emes shekvar nimcholu lo, rak kimo she'ein shir l'chol ma'alos ha'adam memadrigos ha'ruchnis, ve'ein hagbola v'kitzva kamiyucha lalos, kach in shir gam l'madrigos ha'tshuva, she'ischaret od va'od. We'll come back to this Monday, but I'll just tell you this for now. So Rabbi Tzaddik says like this. But say, how did he start off? This internal contradiction. On one hand, I commit navera, I do the tshuva, I file it away, and I expect it to be done. Yet every once in a while, what happens? I begin to think about that avera, not to commit it again, but it comes up, and I don't understand that. Why am I thinking about it if I've done the work to effectively rectify, remedy, and file it away? And the answer, Reb Tzaddik, is because it's not a contradiction. Because in the world of tshuva, there is this constant back and forth. There's on one hand, the need to go ahead, remedy, rectify, file away. But on the other hand, there's also the need to what? To maintain an ever-present cognition and awareness of the averos I've committed. And that's why what happens in the neshama is there are times where I cannot think about something for a very long time. And that's helpful, by the way. We'll discuss this tomorrow Monday. It's helpful not to always think about the averos, but on the flip side, every once in a while, something will come back to my memory. An avera that I committed in the past, that I did my tshuva for. But at the end of the day, now it comes up again. Why does it come up again, Abosai? Because it's important to be aware of your averos. Even if I've not committed that particular avera for a very long time, it's important to be aware of it. Because first of all, Reb Tzaddik is going to say that awareness allows me to do even more tshuva. We'll come back to that on Monday. But that awareness, like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, that awareness creates a heightened level of vigilance. And it's that heightened level of vigilance that hopefully precludes the possibility of sinful relapse. So also we'll stop over here for today. Rabbi Tzaddik telling us that the thoughts are not contradictory. What we do with those thoughts, Emir Hashem Monday. Shkoyach. Good to be back to Reb Tzaddik. What's life without Reb Tzaddik?